स्वाध्याय टीवी। डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब आंबेडकर ओपन यूनिवर्सिटी।
Namaskar and a very big hello to all of you. Myself, Dr. AWA SHUKLA from Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University would like to discuss regarding communication in mass media. Friends, in the last class we discussed about meaning of communication, models of communication and the noises coming in the communication process. Today we will further discuss about the elements of communication. As we all know, friends, the communication process is dynamic in nature rather than a static phenomenon. Communication process as such must be considered a continuous and a dynamic interaction, both affecting and being affected by many variables. Whether in a marketing strategy, a client-server model or just a day-to-day conversation, communicating effectively is an amalgamation of art and science. In fact, when technology advanced rapidly through the turn of the 20th century, a new theoretical field which is known as a communication theory was introduced along with information theory. When we say information theory, what do we inform to people? It's a basic idea of how we communicate with the people. If you cannot communicate, you cannot inform regarding a basic and a specific concept to the people. Notable products of that field are elements of communication, for which there exists a basic model. Naturally, debate abounds over what these elements, in what order they should appear, what a general blueprint survives to help us better understand the tangibles and intangibles behind the art of communication. 7 major elements were identified when we say about elements of communication. This we can see in the PPT itself. The first element is sender, second ideas, encoding, communication, channels, receiver, decoding and feedback. All these 7 elements were categorically identified and they were categorically explained by different communicationists. Over the years, we can just see that there were 2 circles which they identified and continued for more and more years. In one circle, the field was of receiver's communication and the one circle was the sender's communication, where there were several noises also which we can very clearly see. These noises may affect the communication process, but the communication process does exist and it is basically revolving around these 2 circles only. Over the years, with the help of distinguished communication theorists, Claude Shannon, Wilbur Langskram and Robert Craig, among others, a simple model of communication has been evolved to signify the aforementioned elements of communication. Again, there is no universally accepted archetype and dissidence with flock to anything claiming to be such. Still, what follows is not only accurate assessment of the basics, it is also an informative lesson for anyone with a desire to better understand the mechanics of communication. Now, let us discuss about the communication elements as discussed or as explained by these 3 communication experts. Let us see in the PPT what they had when they say about elements of communication. See, here again we find source, message, encoding, channel, decoding, receiver and feedback. Source. First, let us understand what a source means. The source is the person or thing attempting to share information. The source can be living or non-living. It can be anything, friends. It's not always necessary that a source of information should be living only. The only qualification necessary for a source are an origin of information. In information theory, the source generates data that one would like to communicate and an ability to transmit the information through a channel to a receiver. The person who intends to convey the message with an intention of passing information and ideas to others is known as a sender or a communicator. Now, once we say a source, as I said, the source can be any damn thing. It can be a person, it can be a tree, it can be a bird, or anything what we want or what we understand as a source of information. Now, while giving that information, the one who generates the information is a sender. The second element which we discuss is message. At first glance, the message is simply information you want to communicate, but it does deeper than that. Communication theorists examine message from semiotic perspective, the study of signs, symbols, and how meaning is created through them. For example, a commencement speaker produces meaning through several criteria. First, there is an object. That means something what is to be communicated. The second criterion would be his or her image, his acting as a symbol or presentation of a specific object. For this, it can be a well-dressed professional and a successful person. The third criterion is interpretation of derived meaning. If the object and the image, and in this case a speech, as we have taken a speaker, are successful, then the audience will leave an understanding of how to proceed towards life of personal fulfillment. This is the subject of matter of the communication. This may be an idea, an attitude, feelings, views, orders, or maybe some suggestions. The message should be very much subject specific, it should be very much precise, and multiple messages at a time. That means 3 to 4 messages at a time should be avoided, so that the receivers or the person to whom you want to convey this message should be conveyed properly. The third element is encoding. Encoding is the process of assembling a message, that is information, ideas or thoughts, into a representative design with an object of ensuring that the receiver can comprehend it. Communication is only established when it results in the both receiver and the source of communication understanding the common or same information. Communication is only established when it results in both the source and the receiver understanding the same information. This is very much important, friends. When we say that it should be common, once what I want to say and what you all perceive should be same, then only the message which is to be encoded is said to be successful. People who are great communicators are great encoders. They know how to present their message in a way that their audiences, that are the receivers, can understand this very easily. They are also able to identify information that is superfluous, irrelevant, or even accidentally offensive and eliminate it in advanced anticipation. Since the subject matter of communication is theoretical and intangible, its further passing requires use of certain symbols such as words, actions, some pictures or conversation of subject matter into these symbols is the process of encoding. This is very much important, friends. When we say there should be some symbols, when I want to communicate, it should be through pictures. How do you understand what I want to say? It is simply through some words, some pictures, some dramatic conditions, some dialogues, whatever, and this is to be encoded by the sender. The next element which we can see is channel. Now, what is a channel? An encoded message is conveyed by the source through a channel. That means it is a medium of passing the message. There are enormous channels categories: verbal, non-verbal, personal, non-personal, etc. A channel could be the paper on which words are written, or the internet medium, which is very much user friendly nowadays, in the client server model, that is allowing you to read the words. A good communicator is the one who understands the channel to use under different circumstances. It means that you should know which channel to be used. Unfortunately, there is no perfect channel. All the channels have its own strengths and weaknesses. Like smartphones are great, but for example, a marriage proposal is best done in person. It cannot be done on phone. The person who is interested in communicating has to choose the channel for sending the required information, ideas, etc. This information is transmitted to the receiver through certain channels which may be either formal or informal. Now, what is formal or informal channel, friends? Formal channels can be a live talk, it can be a formal educational program through which right now you people are listening to or reading or viewing me, or all the other subject experts, you can say. And informal, we all have television at home, we see some acts, we see movies, we go to some music programs. All these are informal channels. Now comes the next element, that is decoding. Again, decoding is very much important, friends. Now would be an appropriate time to remind yourself that you can just be easily as fill the role of decoder as you can of encoder. This is where listening and reading directions carefully makes it claims to fame. Decode with care, my friends. As we discussed in encoding, communication is only successful when it results both the source and the receiver understanding a common information at a common platform. For this to happen, there can be no errors in processing. The most common among these would be, for example, a first grader sitting on a lecture with different equations. That is impossible decoding if the decoder cannot even understand the message. The person who receives the message or information or the symbol from the communicator tries to convert the same in such a way so that he may extract its meanings to his complete understanding. It means that if I am delivering a lecture, or if a orator is giving some speech regarding a specific topic, the topic should be of the knowledge level to the audience, simply not to the class or elite people for whom it may not be targeted even. So, while decoding the message, we should always keep in mind the message, the channel, and the words, acts, or whatever medium is used should be of the understanding level of the decoder. The sixth element is the receiver. Who is a receiver? It's ultimately the message delivered to the receiver. The last person to understand the message. A good communicator takes the receiver's preconceptions and frames a reference into consideration. How they will react, where common ground is shared, their sense of humor, their moral conduct, etc. All of these things will affect how the receivers decode the message. Receiver is the person who receives the message or for whom the message is meant for. It is the receiver who tries to understand the message in the best possible manner in the achieving the desired objectives. If the receiver is not going to understand what you want to say, then it's a total failure, friends. You should know the mindset of the receiver while delivering something. You should know their nature, their characteristics, maybe their culture, maybe their customs, everything. The next element which we need to discuss is feedback. A better word might be reaction or responses. The source judges its success based on the feedback it receives. So pay close attention. If Google servers crash tomorrow, there would be a lot of confused sources. Feedback is the moment of reckoning. Whether things go right or wrong, it serves one of the most important learning opportunities we have. Feedback is the process of ensuring the receiver has received the message and understood in the expected level or sense of the sender which is meant. Now, when we say feedback, friends, or when we say what the receiver understands, how is it obtained? It is obtained by the reactions, it is obtained by the perceptions or feedback of the receiver. You will then only understand what you wanted to convey to the receivers is appropriately conveyed. They have understood it commonly, they are acting on it commonly, or they try to adapt the things which you wanted them to adapt. Now, the next and last part of element which is not shown in the PPT, but we need to discuss is the context. Context is simply the environment in which your message is delivered. For Bob Dylan, the context was the civil rights movement in the 1960s with a heavy focus on the Big Apple, though he would probably not agree to it. Context could be a boardroom meeting focusing on international expansion or the 2006 World Cup final in Germany. But it's a poor choice, friends. Needless to say, context can easily make or break the effectiveness of communication. So, context is very much important, friends, when we talk about communication. This was all about elements of communication, friends. Now, when we talk about communication, when we talk about elements of communication, when we talk about noises in communication, it is very much necessary for us to know how to be a good communicator. So, let us discuss on how to be a good communicator. First, express your own ideas or reflections very much clearly. If you want to communicate, through any medium, you should know what you want to communicate and should be very much clear, subject specific and thoughtful regarding what is to be communicated. Then, develop relationships. If I want to communicate something to you, but I don't connect to you, I don't feel like talking to you, I behave very arrogantly, I don't want to connect with my audience, I don't want to understand what the audience is actually feeling or what the audience actually wants, then my communication is total failure. So, develop relationships and then communicate. Provide feedback. If you are talking in a meeting, if you are taking some session, if you are in a panel discussion, give answers to questions, react to a response of the audience or an expert. Then only the people will understand what is your opinion regarding a specific subject. Be open to others' feedback. Accept others' answers without prejudices, references, etc. If you intend to respond, if you intend to feedback, you should be ready to understand what others are saying. You have to listen to others' feedbacks also. Next is respect attitudes and opinions of others. You should not be rigid to opinions or attitudes of others. You have to respect their approach also, their opinion also. Then be tolerant to different customs and culture. While talking about anything in public, while talking about anything in media, you should be tolerant to different customs or cultures. You cannot object to any kind of custom or culture. You have to respect, you have to remain tolerant and then give your opinion. Otherwise, nobody is going to understand or nobody is going to bring a change the way you want. Give full attention to people while they are talking to you. This is very much important. If I am talking to somebody or if you are talking to me, I am continuously on my mobile or I am continuously listening to music and not listening to what you are trying to say, then people will not connect with you. Then people will not understand what you want to convey them when it's your turn. So, always give full attention when you are in a crowd, when you are in a public or when you are in a mass, and listen to what they are saying, what they want to talk to you. Encourage other people to talk and ask appropriate questions. When a session is just one-sided, it becomes dry when there is a crowd in front of you. So, it's necessary to ask questions, to make people talk and to let them talk or let them ask to whatever they want to and clear their confusions. It will become very much healthy and positive, friends. Present your ideas so that others are receptive to your point of view. You put your ideas. You cannot compel a person to act on what you want to say, but to give your views. You give your opinions. You communicate in such a way that people are convinced. They keep faith on you. They understand what you want to say and then make them act on it. Treat people fairly and let others know how you want to be treated. This is again important. The way you treat, you will be treated. It's like tit for tat. So, you need to treat your audience, your target people in a very positive and fair manner. Value teamwork and know how to build cooperation and commitment. Whenever you try to communicate, it's just not single-handed. It's always a teamwork. So, respect the teamwork and respect the commitment of the teams while communicating. Strive to understand other people and be empathetic. You have to understand other people's state of mind while talking, while communicating, and be empathetic to their ideas also. At times it happens that people rebel. They don't want to listen in a crowd what you want to say. It's very much common in political meetings. It's very much common when a public figure or a public person who is always related or lives in a public life. It can be a sports person, it can be a telestar, it can be a film star, it can be a politician, anyone. They can react to your behavior, your code of conduct, anything, but you have to tolerate to them. Be able to win people's trust and respect. This is what we discussed earlier also. You need to gain people's trust, their respect if you want them to act or understand what you are trying to say. Or even if you want to make them listen to what you are trying to say, you need to win people's respect and trust. Check to make sure you have understood what other people are trying to communicate. While responding to any kind of question or any kind of communication, you should always convince yourself what you have understood regarding what the target person or the target audience is trying to say. Next is follow through your own commitments. If you have decided you have to talk like this, you have to talk like this. You cannot be biased to your own opinion. You cannot behave dually. If I want you to act in a specific manner, if I want you to keep your surroundings clean, and myself I am throwing garbage here and there, what you will understand, what my target audience will understand. So, whatever I am saying, I need to commit it to myself first and then to the audience. Be able to work with people you have difficulties with or without becoming negative yourself. This is very much important again, friends. Being in public, we have lot many people with whom we cannot connect. But you need to connect, you need to work with people whom you cannot connect. Try it. You yourself don't have to be negative and then act. You do your work. So the person will also adjust to you, and the work or the target or the communication which we want gets successfully done. Now let us discuss about 4 key points of communication. This is again important and connecting in connection with the communicator's effectiveness. First, if you want to convince others with a message, convince them that you are a good person and that you know what you are talking about. You should be clear in talking, friends. You should convince the target person that you are a good person and what you are talking is most understandable and most knowledgeable to you. Use words that your audience will easily understand and remember. You cannot use very hi-fi words or a foreign language which the communicators, which the receivers don't understand. So, to make them understand, maybe at times you need to talk in local language, in regional language, maybe in national language, or maybe in international language, looking upon the crowd you are talking to. It should be simplicized. Third is speak direct in a conversational way for a better communication. You have to speak direct. Move away from egocentrism. When you are talking, friends, you should very much be far from egocentrism. If you are going to talk, if your voice, if your behavior, if your attitude, if your approach is full of ego, then your audience, then the people you are talking to, your target audience, your group of people to whom you are communicating will never understand or never connect with what you want to communicate to them in mass. So friends, while communicating in mass or through any kind of mass medium, it's very much important to keep these 4 points in mind. Today we discussed, friends, regarding elements of communication, how to be a good communicator, and main 4 key points of communication. With this, I end my lecture here. Namaskar.
स्वाध्यायः परमं तपः
स्वाध्याय टीवी